Hello, good evening, right? It's evening. My name is Araceli Esparza. I want to formally welcome everyone. I want to have one moment of silence for a second, please. Louder? Okay. I want to do a little prayer that we got from the Tonga people that were giving us permission to do this on their land. So I need everybody's attention for just a quick second. This was given to us by Julia Bogani. She's one of the elders. We acknowledge that we are standing on Tonga land. The Tonga Nation are the traditional caretakers of the Los Angeles Basin and the Southern Channel Islands. The Tonga Nation did not cede, sell, or sign treaties against their land. We thank the Tonga people for having us as guests on their traditional land. Thank you. I want to introduce Doris Mejia. Sorry. There we go.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're so excited to have you all here and celebrate the inaugural Hispanic Heritage Month at the City of Santa Monica. What better way to start it than in downtown Santa Monica at 3rd Street Promenade, right? Buenas tardes a todos. Buenas tardes. Muchas gracias a todos por venir. Estamos muy felices de que podemos estar aquí celebrando la herencia hispana. Y gracias por tomar tiempo para estar aquí. Gracias a todos los, el mercadito. Gracias a todos los departamentos que se unieron para ayudarnos y que esto sea realidad. Antes de para empezar, vamos a darle la bienvenida al alcalde, Sue Hilmrich. As we start, we're going to have Mayor Sue Hilmrich come up and give a couple of words. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank the organizers of this event. Santa Monica has not.
I'm going to just hold it for you. Go for it.
I can do it.
Okay.
I'm used to this. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay. I want to thank all of you for coming, but most of all, I want to thank the committee that organized this. If you missed our city council meeting last night, they did a marvelous job of presenting what the next month's activities are going to be. I'm going off script. I'm sorry, guys. And we had a great meeting. This is the beginning of what I hope will be a continuing tradition in Santa Monica of honoring Hispanic Heritage Month. This is our first night. As all of you know, it's been a very hard year. And I am really happy to be here with you, to see your faces, and to celebrate this event. Over the past several years, Santa Monica has reaffirmed our commitment to elevating our support of communities of color, embracing all cultures, and promoting thoughtful and equitable policies. Today's celebration marks the first, as I said, of what I hope and what, at least as long as I'm here, will be a community recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month in Santa Monica in the future. Just this week, actually, just last night, our City Council affirmed our solidarity with the Hispanic community and proclaimed September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month in Santa Monica. The influence of the Latino community is strong in our country. And in Los Angeles County, there are over 4.9 million people who identify as Hispanic. The influence of the Latino community is infused into our daily lives in so many ways, much of which we will honor all month. The contributions to the economy, the sharing of their amazing literature, art, music, and food. As you can see tonight, our Latino and Latinx community is being represented in Santa Monica. And on this day, Santa Monicans join Costa Ricans, El Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Nicaraguans, Mexicans, Chileans, Belizeans, and 23 other countries to celebrate this month of independence from Spain and the amazing contribution of Latinos to our great country. And I'm proud to share that this extends to every corner of our city team. look around you. You see all the badges hanging off people's necks. This is our city team. And today, over a third of our city team identifies Latino or Latinx. The events that launched tonight were organized by our Hispanic Heritage Month Steering Committee, a group of city staff that came together on their own to help display our community's commitment to embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I would love it if all of you would step forward and take the recognition you deserve from everyone here, or not. This may look easy, but this is a lot of work. I just want you to know. So thank you all for last night and for today, and I'm thanking you in advance for the next month. Thank you very much. And let me just tell you who you're seeing here. This is Jay Aguilar, Donald Zelaya, Doris Mejia, Cecilia Tovar, Araceli Esparza, and Ana Hara. So big round for them. And they did such a great job both last night and today. Thank you for putting your hearts and minds together to create programming aimed to elevate, educate, and empower Latinx individuals. I hear that tonight's event will not disappoint, and I personally cannot wait to hear the Mariachi Band, whose membership is comprised of community services officers from our very own police department. I just can't wait to experience all you have in store for us. So let the celebration begin.
Okay, before we start the music again, we want to introduce and bring up Councilmember Christine Parra. Queremos darle la bienvenida a Christine Parra. You're probably going to have to hold it. Is that okay? Just set your flower on the... Okay, thank you.
Thank you. See if I can do this. Okay, gracias y buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están? Le quiero dar muchas gracias de nuevo a todos que han trabajado tan duro para hacer esta celebración de our heritage una realidad. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much again for making this a realization for Hispanic Heritage Month. Good evening. Now I'm going to go on script. Good evening, Santa Monica. What an amazing evening in downtown Santa Monica on the world-famous 3rd Street Promenade. I'm Councilmember Christine Parra, and a proud Latina. It is my absolute honor to be here tonight to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. Catch my breath. You know, as Mayor Himmelrich mentioned earlier, it's been an incredible year, and our community has faced so many unique challenges. And yet, here we all are celebrating together tonight. And before the festivities begin, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the people who helped us get through some of the hardest moments of this pandemic, our first responders and our essential workers. The pandemic has put a spotlight on our essential workers, many who spent their entire careers behind the scenes, keeping our community a clean, healthy, and safe place to be. Tonight, I want to ask you to join me in showing gratitude for all of our city's first responders and essential workers, many of whom are Latinos as well. For some, the pandemic meant hunkering down and adapting the solitude and safety within our homes. But our first responders and essential workers provided services throughout the pandemic and was and continues to be a critical component to keep our city beautiful and thriving. All of our first responders and essential workers had to make sacrifices to report to work each and every day. And as a fellow essential worker, I know how hard it was to leave my family and come to work each day and to do my job. My love for this community and my loyalty to the work is what motivated me, and I know it is what motivates all of you. And I know that you will always continue to do what is best, and for that we all salute you. Thank you for patrolling our streets and responding to our emergencies, for answering our 911 calls for service, for sweeping our streets, for nursing us back to health, for providing clean water for our homes, for delivering packages and meals, for picking up refuse, for stocking our grocery shelves, and for making sure our street lights guided us safely home each night. And though we are not out of the pandemic quite yet, I am confident we'll make it through because of the work that you do each and every single day to keep Santa Monica so great. So please join me in a round of applause for all of our first responders and essential workers. Thank you. All right, let's party. Thank you.
So, hi everyone, Donald Zelaya here. I have the pleasure of introducing our last and keynote speaker, Dr. Marisol Moreno, who's from Santa Monica College, from the Department of History. She's been with the Department of History for over 25 years, and she's gonna give us, along our themes right there, elevate, educate, and empower. So we're gonna get a little bit of the empowerment and social activism that Latinos do in our community and other communities away from here in Southern California. So please join me with a round of applause to welcome Dr. Moreno.
Oh, sorry, I need glasses. I'm old now. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I need my glasses now. Sorry, folks. That's my pandemic change. All right, can you hear me? Can you? Okay, all right. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to use my teacher voice and project. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Marisol Moreno. I'm an associate professor of American History and Ethnic Studies, and I'm proud to represent Santa Monica College. Santa Monica College is made up of dedicated faculty and staff committed to creating a dynamic and culturally responsive educational community that upholds the values of equity, inclusion, and social justice as a pathway to personal and academic excellence. On behalf of the college, I thank the event organizers for the invitation to participate in today's festivities. I want to start, I know we did this, but I'm going to do this again. Before I move forward, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Tongva Gabrielino peoples as the traditional land caretakers of the Los Angeles and Southern Channel Islands. I pay my respect to the ancestors, elders, and our relatives, relations, past, present, and emerging. Okay, like Donald said, today I'll be speaking about the contributions of Latinx peoples to American history, society, and our understandings of freedom. So get comfortable. You're gonna get one of these free SMC lessons right now. All right, Eric Foner, Professor Emeritus of American History from Columbia University, famously said, "History is what the present chooses to remember about the past." For Latinx peoples, much of our rich and complex histories of social struggles and aspirations for freedom in the United States have been forgotten, if not distorted by past and present negative stereotypes and prejudice that relegated us to the periphery of American society. Up into the civil rights movement of the 1960s and 70s, Latinx peoples, when and if featured in U.S. history textbooks, cinema, and television, were commonly depicted as villains, foes, or victims in the national stories of war, expansion, modernization, and urbanization. While the latter part of the 20th century witnessed a proliferation of research and scholarship by and on diverse Latinx populations, popular film, television, and mass media continue to ignore the multiplicity of Latinx experiences, opting instead to depict us in limited and stereotypical roles, often as violent gang members, unruly inner-city public school kids, or even as immigrant maids, but we're more than that. So why does historical memory and representation matter? Why should we care about people's histories and stories, and why should we care about which people's histories and stories get told and which don't? What can we gain from knowing about our Latinx history? These are questions I often pose to my students in the classroom. In fact, I ask my students at the end of the semester to share what they learned from taking a class that centers on the Latinx historical experience. Here are some direct quotes from my past students on what they've learned. After learning about Latinx history, I have more respect for my family's struggles because through the class readings, I encountered familiar stories told at the dinner table. I'm humbled to have immigrant parents who have fought hard, just like past immigrants. Another student said, taking this class was a first step for me in understanding what it means to be a Chicano. I'm inspired by my fellow Latinos and Chicanos who paved the way for my existence in America through their hard work, political activism, and many sacrifices. And one last quote. The Latinx experience is not a one-size-fits-all narrative. Exploring different groups of Latinx peoples throughout our history has given me a broader view of the issues that affect my community. And while our community has contributed to significant political change, we still have more work to do. As revealed by these quotes, my students turn to history in search of an individual and shared ethnic and racial identity as Latino Americans. But they also look to Latinx history for lessons and role models to build a socially just society that recognizes and values their full humanity. So what does Latinx history tell us about our collective aspirations and dreams for creating a just and inclusive society? Here are a few historical examples to honor and celebrate our community's contributions to creating a vibrant, multiracial democracy. On Hispanos' contributions to early civil rights and economic freedom. Similar to anti-gentrification activists who seek to prevent the displacement of historically segregated Latinx and Blacks communities to make room for urban renewal, Las Gorras Blancas of New Mexico resisted the dispossession of their homes and livelihoods brought on by the end of the Mexican-American War and the subsequent monopolization of Western lands and natural resources by capitalist markets. Las Gorras Blancas used armed and political resistance to defend their claims to land, culture, and language. Legal rights, by the way, that had been granted to Mexican Americans in the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe, but violated by the US government courts and individual white settlers. While the vigilante group initially targeted the symbols of capitalism by damaging the barbed wire fences and railroad tracks that disrupted their traditional access to communal lands, other members of Las Gorras Blancas turned to the American and political legal process to defend Hispano claims to rights. Their defense of Chicano homelands and access to economic opportunity often intersected with other Gilded Age movements like the Knights of Labor that critiqued unregulated capitalism and raised the question whether meaningful freedom could exist with this extreme economic inequality. On immigrants' contribution to fighting racial discrimination, like today's Dreamers and immigrant aid organizations who work tirelessly for humane immigration policy and for the inclusion of immigrants as part of the social fabric of a diverse United States, early immigrant communities pulled together to fight against rising anti-Latinx prejudices and discrimination. For example, in the late 1890s, the Martí Maceo Society of Free Thinkers, an Afro-Cubano nationalist club from Ybor City, Florida, drew inspiration from Jose Martí's vision of a shared comunidad identity based on the belief that being Cuban superseded differences of race, gender, and immigration status. This anti-racist vision of an inclusive Latino American identity offered a stark contrast to America's burgeoning Jim Crow system and its accompanying white supremacist ideology. Likewise, Mexican immigrants in 1920 Chicago created a network of mutual aid societies, sports clubs, religious organizations to help them survive a hostile and racist environment that relegated them to the bottom of the labor market. As noted by historian Gabriela Arredondo, immigrant organizations drew on a shared ethnic identity called Mexicanidad to bolster pride in their cultural heritage and to mobilize collective action against racial discrimination in jobs, schools, and housing. On Latinos' contribution to American labor rights and civil liberties. Though most of us assume that Central American immigrants are recent to shaping American history, there are hidden stories of amazing individuals like Guatemalan-born Luisa Moreno, who immigrated to New York City in 1928 and went on to become a champion of American civil rights and labor activism. Through the 30s and 40s, Moreno organized American and foreign-born industrial wage workers, such as the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, the United Cannery Agricultural Packing and Allied Workers of America, and the Congress of Industrial Organization, just to name a few. In 1938, Moreno organized over 100 Latinx organizations into the Congress of Spanish-Speaking Peoples, a civil rights organization dedicated to fighting racism and exploitative working conditions while promoting voter registration and bilingual education. Ultimately, her affiliation with leftist and communist groups drew the ire of the United States government during the early Cold War period. For refusing to testify in the McCarthy-era trials held by the House and Un-American Activities Committee, Moreno faced deportation in 1950. Before being expelled from the country, she is quoted as saying, "They can talk about deporting me, but they can never deport the peoples that I worked with and with whom things were accomplished for the benefit of hundreds of thousands of workers." Luisa Moreno's courage to defend the right to unionize and the constitutional principles of freedom of assembly and freedom of speech against intolerant political forces are part of the untold story of how Latinx peoples have defended American civil liberties and broadened its boundaries to include the right to unionize. And here's the last example. On our contributions, not just to civil rights, but to creating a more inclusive America. The roots of contemporary Latinx youth activism focusing on issues such as anti-racism, police violence, poverty, feminism, and LGBTQ rights can also be traced to earlier struggles of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Radical groups like the Young Lords Revolutionary Party and Chicano student organizations like Mecha and Las Hijas de Cuauhtémoc aspire to create humanized institutions and values centered on anti-racism, socialism, anti-imperialism, self-determination, and gender equality. The Chicano and Puerto Rican liberation movements of the 60s and 70s were as much about creating new political identities as it was about attacking structural racism, poverty, and the negative impact of U.S. imperialism on their shared histories. Unlike their parents' World War II generation, movement activists of the 60s and 70s did not seek to present their political values and ethnic identities as compatible with mainstream white America. Legal scholar Ian Haney Lopez argues that movement activists drew upon the triangular connection of protest, repression, and race to construct a non-white racial identity and to argue that a liberation movement was necessary because Latinx peoples like African Americans and Native Americans were a racialized population with a shared history of colonization and imperialism. In adopting non-white racial identities such as Chicana or Boricua, student and community activists rejected assimilationist pressures to abandon their Black and Indigenous ancestry and cultural heritage to gain entry into white-dominant institutions. Seeking more radical fundamental change, activists mobilized racial and ethnic pride to counter prevailing stereotypes of their alleged inferiority and inability to exercise self-determination over their own lives. Other movement trailblazers, such as Puerto Rican transgender activist Sylvia Rivera, best known for her role in the 1969 Stonewall riots, and the Gay Latino Alliance in 1970s, 1980s San Francisco, further expanded the racial, gender, and sexual boundaries of Latino freedom. As noted by historian Horacio Roque Ramirez, the gay and lesbians who made up the Gay Latino Alliance sought to merge LGBT and Latinx political identities through their support of Latino-centered issues, such as the Central American sanctuary movement of the 1980s, and through their attempt to combat the anti-Latino racism they encountered in white gay bars and clubs. Indeed, queer and transgender Latinx activists broadened the movement's analysis of oppression by highlighting the intersectional dynamics of race, immigration status, class, gender, and sexual struggles. As you can see, we have much to be proud of. Through our individual and collective struggles and activism, often in alliance with other historically marginalized groups, Latinx peoples have sought to bridge the gap between America's reality and mythic ideal of equality and freedom. In the process of claiming rights, Latinx communities broaden the definition of who is an American. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moreno. I want to say thank you, everyone. I want to acknowledge the awesome work of everyone here. I also, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Better? Okay. I want to say thank you, everyone, for coming. I do want to say that we have other city council members here, Oscar de la Torre, and also Lana is here. If you see her, please, Lana Negrete, she's over there, say hi. And also our city manager, John Jalili, and Assistant City Manager Susan Klein. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to continue. Vamos a continuar. Le estamos dando las gracias a todos por estar aquí y ayudarnos a compartir el momento que tenemos tan especial. Y vamos a tener música. Por favor, no se vayan. Visiten, apoyen a nuestros negocios locales. Y muchas gracias. Y vamos a seguir con, va a haber mariachi y va a haber baile y el DJ va a continuar. Buenas noches. Antes de que se me olvide, hay algo muy importante. Tenemos la clínica de vacunas aquí atrás, son gratis para que las personas que quieran venir se puedan vacunar. We also have vaccine here behind us. It's a clinic, they are for free. Pfizer. By Pfizer is the vaccine. Thank you so much. And now we have our city council member, Lana Negrete.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be up here. This is a really memorable day for all of us because it's the first time this has been done, and I'm so proud of our city staff who's taking their personal time to put this together. I don't have anything written, so I'm just up here to say thank you to everybody who's worked on this. Thank you to everybody who's participating by coming. And I want to remind you that there's all these festivities and activities throughout the month, one of which is to support your Latino-owned businesses. So please make sure you get a Loteria card and you look at the businesses on the back. My understanding is that more businesses, including Santa Monica Music Center, will be added, and many other businesses in the community. So if you're here and you have a business in the community and you're not on here, please let somebody know and you will be included, because we want to find out that you exist. We want to be able to visit you. We want to learn more about our city. Sometimes we walk by businesses and we don't even realize that they existed for so long. So I'm really excited about that part of it. I'm also excited about all the festivities that are coming and happy that everyone showed up today. So thank you so much. Enjoy the music, enjoy the fun. Gracias.